Oh, look at these two. All right, come on. You okay?
The executive at the center of a kiss cam controversy is stepping down.
They realize they're on camera, then they pull the ripcord on that moment. I don't know where he went. Can you imagine getting busted at a Coldplay concert of all places?
Wife, he has children, these kids are gonna have to watch and see this. They don't look, I would be devastated if I was his wife.
Andy Byron's Coldplay kiss cam moment didn't end on the Jumbotron. It detonated his career, his marriage, and the Byron family name. While the board moved fast, his parents went quiet. Or did they? Tonight we separate what's confirmed from what's whispered, why they might be heartbroken, furious, and choosing sides, and how a 20-second clip rewired an entire empire. The internet wanted a statement from the people who raised him. A quote, a text, anything. But the loudest sound around Andy Byron's parents was the quiet. No press conference, no open letter, no on-the-record interview anyone could point to without a shrug. As of now, there's no verified public statement from them that meets a simple test: a real name, a real outlet, and a source that stands behind the words. What filled the gap was guesswork, dressed up as certainty. Screenshots claiming to be from a family group chat, a friend of the family posts with just enough detail to feel true and just enough fuzziness to escape accountability. Even polished Notes app paragraphs floated around with signatures that no one could confirm. Here's the truth most people won't say out loud. Until a parent signs their name or speaks into a mic on the record, everything else is noise. Silence isn't approval. Silence isn't condemnation. Silence is strategy. Families in the blast zone have different risks than companies do. Every sentence can become discovery in a legal case. Every adjective can get twisted into a headline. One stray phrase about loyalty, morality, or blame can live forever on a screenshot. If you're a parent, you're not only protecting your child, you're protecting grandchildren, extended family, and the rest of a life that never asked for trending tabs. There are human reasons behind that quiet too. Shock, embarrassment, anger that has no safe outlet. Parents balance decades of love against a moment they can't defend. They weigh private values against public pressure. They replay old memories, first recitals, college drop-offs, wedding toasts, and try to square them with a stadium clip that refuses to leave their phone. You don't need a sourced quote to know those nights are long. Some people claimed the family had picked sides, that a mother sent a blistering one-liner, that a father delivered a private rebuke through a mutual friend. Maybe, maybe not. Without names and outlets willing to stand behind it, it lives where all rumor lives, in that murky space between wishful thinking and weaponized gossip. Responsible coverage draws a line there. We will too. What can be said responsibly is simpler and less satisfying. If they speak, every word will be measured. A public defense risks looking like denial. A public rebuke risks permanent fracture. A neutral, we ask for privacy, risks getting mocked as corporate language. And yet, the pressure to say something keeps building, because silence in the social era gets read as a verdict. They must be ashamed. They must be furious. They must be choosing her over him. Those are projections, not facts. There's also the community factor. Parents don't live on the internet. They live on streets with neighbors and in circles with long memories. They have church rows and grocery aisles and small talk that suddenly isn't small. One sentence, even well-intentioned, can redraw those maps for years. That's why many families wait. They speak only if it helps someone they love, or they don't speak at all. If a statement ever comes, expect it to be brief, careful, and pointed at what matters most to them. Compassion for the people hurt, space for private repair, and a refusal to litigate a marriage in public. Expect no details. Expect no blame game. Expect language that tries to close a door the internet keeps prying open. Until then, the fairest position is also the hardest one in a scandal economy. Hold the line between what's confirmed and what's convenient. The clip is public. The resignations are public. The cultural fallout is public. The parents' hearts are not. And unless they choose to open that door, no one else gets to kick it in. But that wasn't the whole story, because the longest shadow of this moment won't be a quote. It'll be the policies, the hiring calls, and the reputations that companies rebuild long after the memes go quiet. By the time the day ends, the narrative has shifted from wild concert moment to corporate firestorm. The stadium laughs fade, the boardrooms wake up, and the internet, having lit the match, wants to see what burns next. Within hours, the mystery couple wasn't a mystery anymore. Comments turned into names. Names turned into job titles. The clip stopped being about two fans at a concert and became a story about power, policy, and judgment. The internet had found its cast. Andy Byron, the high-profile CEO, and Kristen Cabot, the head of people operations, the person who's supposed to set the standard for everyone else. From there, the narrative hardened fast. Screenshots of conference talks, old podcasts, snippets from company pages and cached bios, side-by-side images labeled like a police board, arrows and circles pointing at shoulders, rings, reactions. It didn't matter that none of it was a full picture. It felt like one. And when the crowd feels certain, the court of public opinion moves to sentencing. The irony did half the work. CEO and HR. The punchline wrote itself. Threads filled with policy quotes and training slides pulled from everywhere. Fraternization rules, power imbalance definitions, code of conduct snippets. People who had never heard of the company 2 days ago were debating its ethics as if they'd sat in its board meetings for years. That's how virality works. You don't need the whole story, just a detail juicy enough to stand in for the truth. Then came the moral math. Commenters framed it as a betrayal, a breach, a test case for what happens when leaders think the rules don't apply. There were calls for suspensions, for resignations, for investigations. Some pushed it further, prying into spouses and families, a line that always gets crossed once momentum takes over. It wasn't just a concert moment anymore, it was a referendum. What made it unstoppable was the clarity of the footage. No grain, no shadows, no plausible confusion. The audience had body language, micro-expressions, the duck-away move replayed in endless slow-mo. People read guilt into the silence. They read intent into a glance. And with every replay, the story grew teeth. Inside the company, you could almost hear the alarms. Every comms playbook says the same thing: contain, investigate, respond. But there's a clock on reputation, and the internet doesn't wait for facts. Investors watch, employees whisper, recruiters cancel, partners ask for quick calls. The entire brand starts vibrating from a video that lasted less than a verse of a song. By sundown, this wasn't a fandom joke or a spicy meme thread. It was a corporate crisis with names, titles, and expectations. And the one option that no longer existed was doing nothing. But that wasn't the whole story, because the next 24 hours would turn a viral moment into a leadership vacuum.
The clip went viral. The company went silent. Then the alarms started ringing. Legal, comms, the board, everyone on the same late-night call. The first move was predictable. Step back and investigate. A leave of absence lands. An internal review opens. The message is clear. Control the damage before the damage controls you. Inside, it feels like a fire drill. Calendars vanish under urgent invites. Talking points get drafted, redrafted, and hand-carried to anyone who might talk. Partners want reassurances. Customers want continuity. Employees want to know if the rules are real when leaders break them on the biggest screen in New England. The answer has to be decisive or it won't matter. Then the pivot. The board accepts a resignation. The headline everyone expected lands faster than most thought possible. Not months, not weeks, days. A leadership vacuum opens and gets filled just as quickly. A co-founder steps in as interim CEO. The steady hand meant to signal 3 things at once. The product is stable, the plan is intact, and the company still has adults in the room. Behind that public line is the unglamorous part of crisis management. Freeze optional travel. Tighten access. Stand up an external review so the conclusions carry weight. Remind every manager what no retaliation actually means. HR partners with legal on hotlines, reporting paths, and Q&As that avoid the trap of saying too much or too little. It's choreography under pressure, and every misstep becomes a screenshot. Markets don't wait for memos. Recruiters sniff weakness. Competitors whisper. The brand that took years to build now lives inside a 20-second replay. And leadership has to prove the company is more than that clip. That's why the interim handoff matters. It buys time. It shows motion. It tells customers and employees we're not frozen. But a leadership change at the top never solves the whole puzzle. The internet hadn't forgotten who was sitting next to him in that video. And the irony of that title would prove impossible to outrun. And what happened next would pull the second most powerful person in the story straight into the blast zone. The internet focused on the irony before the board ever said a word. CEO and head of people, policy and power, tangled in one frame. Inside the company, that wasn't a meme. It was a credibility crisis. HR is supposed to be the last line of trust, the place you go when something feels off. If the person guarding the door is in the clip, the door doesn't feel real anymore. Pressure built fast. Employees wanted clarity. Managers wanted guidance that didn't sound like spin. Outside counsel weighed the risks. Conflicts of interest, perceived favoritism, reporting obligations. Even if a relationship were consensual, the power dynamic alone raises red flags. That's not internet drama. That's compliance 101. So the second announcement landed. The head of people stepped down. No long letter, no dramatic defense, just a clean exit that said, without saying it, the role can't be effective in this storm. Leadership pages updated, org charts shifted, projects got reassigned overnight. The message to the market was simple: we're drawing a line. But inside the culture, a resignation is only the beginning. HR must reboot its authority from zero. That means relaunching reporting channels with teeth, resetting expectations with managers, and proving, in deeds, not decks, that rules apply up and down the ladder. It means audits, training with real scenarios, and giving employees confidence that complaints won't vanish because they touch powerful people. Meanwhile, the internet kept looping the clip. The narrative hardened. This wasn't a one-person mistake. It was a system wobble. And when systems wobble, the blast radius doesn't stop at job titles. It hits homes,
friendships, loyalties. But that wasn't the whole story, because while executives fell, one person's quiet moves spoke louder than any press release. By the next news cycle, watchers noticed something small but loud. Meghan Kerrigan pared back her online footprint. A last name quietly removed here, a profile photo swapped there. Then, in a blink, accounts went dark. Not rage, not theatrics, just a clean digital exit that told the story she wasn't ready to say out loud. Silence can be strategy. In viral scandals, anything you post becomes discovery, evidence, or a headline. Lawyers know this. So do people who've lived through it. You close the blinds, you freeze the feed, you narrow your circle to family, counsel, and one or two friends you trust at 2 a.m. It isn't weakness, it's triage. The internet tried to fill the void. Screenshots appeared, claiming to be her official statement. Some were obvious fakes, the fonts, the formatting, the clumsy phrasing. Others were slick enough to fool casual scrollers. That's how rumor economies work. Counterfeit empathy packaged as truth, traveling faster than corrections. Meghan didn't dignify them. She didn't need to. The smarter play is not to wrestle with a flood that wants you to slip. Meanwhile, a different narrative took shape without her lifting a finger. Comment sections reframed her as the center of gravity, the person wronged, the adult in the room, the quiet counterweight to a spectacle. Strangers wrote long defenses on her behalf. Others posted practical threads. How to lock down privacy settings, how to document timelines, how to separate accounts when your name is everywhere. The advice was blunt, sometimes cold, but it came from a real place. Protect yourself first. Inside the blast radius, you can imagine the checklist. Talk to counsel, secure finances, decide what to say to kids, neighbors, colleagues. Choose whether to keep or change the last name on leases, utilities, school forms. Not everything is a signal to the world. Sometimes it's just paperwork under fluorescent lights, a reminder that scandal doesn't pause the normal parts of life. There was also whisper-level speculation about where loyalties landed. Did friends pick sides? Did colleagues check in privately? Did extended family offer a couch, a spare room, a long drive out of town? The only honest answer, until someone goes on record, is that we don't know. What we can see is the shape of her response. Controlled, minimal, and impossible to misquote. That restraint gave her something the clip took from everyone else: dignity. While the internet replayed a fall in slow motion, she refused to become a character in someone else's edit. No dramatic captions, no subtweets, just silence, which, in a storm like this, reads like strength. But silence has a way of amplifying other voices, and the ones people were waiting to hear weren't influencers or pundits. They were closer, older, and far more complicated. The parents whose name now sat at the center of every headline. And what happened next would shift the spotlight to the family most people assumed would never speak at all. What started as a concert cutaway turned into a culture machine. The clip didn't just rack up views, it spawned a new language. Duets, reaction stitches, frame-by-frame breakdowns. People added captions, punchlines, and mock body language analyses with arrows and freeze frames. Someone set the moment to ballads. Someone else cut it to elevator music. The internet's favorite hobby, turning awkwardness into art, went into overdrive. Late-night monologues picked it up for the obvious irony. CEO and HR at a love song show. You can't script a cleaner setup. A few comedians leaned into workplace bits. Annual trainings, power dynamics, the mythical no fraternization slide no one reads until it's too late. It wasn't always kind, but it was fast. That speed is part of the punishment now. A joke told to millions can outrun any carefully worded statement. Brands sniffed the moment and circled. Some winked in comment sections with relationship policy quips. Others posted memey kiss cam risk management lines. When a story becomes a canvas for every marketing team in the feed, you know it has crossed from news into culture. That's when reputations calcify. Not because people studied the truth, but because they learned the punchline. Meanwhile, real conversations crept in under the noise. Workers talked about the rules, not the pretend ones, the ones that decide careers. Where does consent end and influence begin? What if the person who handles your complaint is part of the complaint? People swapped stories from past jobs, whispers about favoritism, unspoken perks, promotions that felt pre-decided. The clip became shorthand for a bigger fear, that some doors open for reasons no handbook will admit. Privacy debates flared too. Stadiums are public, feeds are permanent, but should every blush and flinch be a referendum? Some said yes, leaders owe the public a higher standard. Others said no, this is spectacle with collateral damage. Both are true in a way. The internet is a place where a lesson and a pylon often look identical. Even the band's light banter turned into an artifact. Fans clipped a line here, a grin there, and folded it into the myth. That's how narratives lock in, not with one definitive source, but with 1,000 little echoes. A gesture, a joke, a caption that travels further than the correction ever will. If you zoom out, you can see three waves. First, the laughs, easy, quick, irresistible. Second, the policies, compliance talk, HR playbooks, and what companies owe their people. Third, the human layer no one can meme into neat shapes. The kids, the friends, the spouses, the families who never asked to be trending. That third wave hits slower, and it lingers longest. Which is why the quietest question got the loudest speculation. What about his parents? Did they call? Did they condemn? Did they pick a side? The truth is, when families don't speak, the internet writes their lines for them. It invents texts, it scripts apologies, it assigns shame. And yet, that silence might be the only sane move left. Because once the culture takes your story, every sentence you say becomes a headline you didn't mean to write. But that wasn't the whole story, because the most sensitive chapter is the one with the least proof. What Andy Byron's parents actually did or didn't say. The internet moves on, companies don't. After the headlines fade, the real work begins. Quiet, unglamorous, and relentless. Interim leadership steadies the ship, not with inspirational slogans, but with calendars. Standing meetings with customers, one-on-ones with managers, a board search committee spinning up shortlists and NDAs. Stability is a rhythm before it's a press release. Inside, policy turns from PDF to practice. Relationship disclosure rules get rewritten in plain English. Clear reporting chains replace fuzzy, use your judgment lines. If there's a power gap, there's a policy. Mandatory disclosure, recusal from reviews, and a bright line ban when influence can't be removed. That's not moral theater, it's risk containment. Consent can be real and still be compromised when a promotion hinges on the same person you're dating. HR has to earn back something you can't buy. Trust. That means third-party hotlines that don't forward to someone's friend. Ombud services with teeth. Listening sessions where leaders take notes instead of defending themselves. Climate surveys that ask brutal questions and publish uncomfortable answers. A one-time amnesty window can help too. Disclose now, fix it now, no retro punishment, so long as no harm was done. People respect rules they can understand and systems that correct without public shaming. Legal and compliance run a parallel track. Audits of recent promotions, pay changes, and performance ratings look for patterns that don't make sense. Mandatory training returns with real scenarios, not cartoon slides about photocopiers. Managers get a script for what to do when a report involves someone powerful, how to preserve evidence, when to escalate, what not to promise. The consequence grid gets clearer. What triggers a warning, what mandates leave, and what ends a job. Clarity beats fear every time. A stadium joke became a career-ending clip. A boardroom reshuffled in days. An HR chief stepped down. And the internet turned one awkward moment into a culture lesson on power, policy, and restraint. Those parts are confirmed. What isn't? The private hearts behind the headlines, especially the parents everyone kept trying to script. If there's a single takeaway, it's this. Virality moves faster than truth. Companies can rebuild with rules and routines. Families don't have that playbook. Silence can be cowardice or wisdom. Public contrition can be healing or gasoline. The difference isn't in the volume. It's in the consequences you're willing to live with when the crowd goes home. So what matters most here? The facts we can verify, the timing that shaped them, or the perceptions that still outrun both? Should parents speak to satisfy the feed or hold the line for the sake of what remains private? And when leaders blur boundaries, do policies protect people or only brands? I want to hear your take. What did this moment reveal to you about power at work, accountability online, and the cost of turning real lives into content? Drop your thoughts below. If you want more deep dives that sort proof from rumor and leave room for the human part, follow along. The clip may fade, but the choices it exposed will echo for a while.